Informal County Commission meeting. We don't have anyone to address the commission night. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a couple of presentations from the school system. First, I'd like to call on our Director of Schools, Mr. Millard House, to give us an update on the school system. Are you going to do that one, Jim? So you're going to do both? Or you're going to do something? Okay. So Mr. Jim Summerall will give us an update.
I'm not sure what happened there. He and I both got the same email from Shelley, but when he called me to go over this data,
That's
he
fine.
had indicated he'll be here next week.
That's fine.
During your formal presentation.
This is for you, right?
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you here. The purpose of this brief presentation was some informal feedback that I got several months ago from one of the commissioners here, basically indicating that the data that we provide relative to planning was ineffective. And so hearing that, I went and talked to Norm. We sat and talked together and thought, you know, that's not good, and thought the best way to do this would be to spend a few minutes with you and tell you how we see the planning process from the school system's vantage point. I mentioned it to Millard and asked him if he thought that would be okay, and he did. So what I'm going to try to do very quickly here this evening is just to provide an overview of how we develop our data and how we present the data that ultimately makes its way to you. And then finally, to ask for some feedback from you that would help us develop and present better data that would help you in your decision making. You've all seen that one before several times, I'm sure. So I'll tell you where we're at today. The number, each of the little blue blocks represents the 40th academic day of every school year, as you can see, dating back to 1980. The data for this year has not yet been entered because we're not at the 40th day. Just for your general information, as of last Friday, we had 22,058 students that had enrolled in our traditional programs, so riding the school bus, going to school, going to home. And then another 14,378 that had enrolled in the K-12 virtual program. So, and then we have another 119 of our youngsters that are at the middle college at Austin P, and they all go in the traditional role. So currently 36,555 as of last Friday. And so if we compare that to last year's 40th day, which is the benchmark that we always use, so we're making fair comparisons, we're down 72 students compared to the 40th day last year. So you can see, again, you've heard me all say it's whatever happened, who knows what it was, but in 1985, student growth trend began, and it has continued ever since. As you can see indicated, there are a few years where we had minor gains, but generally speaking, we've been growing students. And if you do the math on the last 30 years, the average enrollment growth at CMCSS is some 630 additional students every year. So that hasn't happened this year, but I'm sure you all know this year has been a wild ride for everybody, I'm sure. Those negative 72 students don't really know where they are and still trying to work through all of that, but certainly some students enrolled in a private school, if you will, and others had indicated to us that because of their fear of the disease, they chose to homeschool their children. So that's just kind of a look at where we're at on the student growth for this year. So specifically our involvement with the planning process, it comes to me, it's the packet is addressed to me every month. I get a packet, and we see that as our opportunity to provide input to you and in how the growth is going to impact our ability to provide public education services to the children of the district. And so this form here, as you can see, the Planning Commission indicated that they felt like they should get feedback from 8 agencies in addition to CMCSS. I think they've got CMCSS highlighted up there. Maybe not. It's delivered to my office, and I go through the complete packet. I keep a capacity analysis spreadsheet on my desk, and so where you see the handwritten marks there, I've indicated that Oakland Elementary, at the time that I filled out this report, was at 114% of the design capacity of the building, that the middle school, which is Rossview Middle School, 117%, and then the high school at 110%. And then I signed the document. You can see that on the bottom. Again, our belief here is that we're not to make recommendations. We're simply to provide you with the facts as to how they would impact the community's ability to provide public education services. It would be inappropriate for us to make a recommendation because we don't hear from those other 8 agencies that were asked to provide their input, and certainly you're the ones that are provided with all of the feedback and certainly in a better position to make decisions on these cases. So having filled out the handwritten portion of my signature, that's kind of the executive overview for you to look at and just take a quick snapshot, and that snapshot to me would indicate that we're in trouble on those campuses. I send the document over to Norm in facilities, and then Norm looks at the size, the type of houses that would be built there, and then he does some analysis and he provides all of the information. There it comes. So that's me, and then that's Norm. Let me just. So first of all, is that helpful? That's just your general overview. This is the status of the buildings as they existed on the 40th day, which is the day we make the equal comparison. So I just give you that so you can quickly look at it and see that we appear to be in trouble in these schools. And then Norm provides the other details. So in that, without boring you with reading it all, he talks about the elementary school is in the fastest growing CMCSS zoning region. There are 6 portables. The other 2 schools, the secondary schools, are in the Rossview zone, the second fastest zone. There are 10 portables at the middle school, 6 portables at the high school. He goes on and talks about the highest growth rate. Remember, we're averaging over 600 kids every year, year after year for 30 years. He goes on to tell you that the potential of this change could be 230 single-family residential homes. He goes on to tell you that 230 homes could easily produce 110 or more students that would impact those already overcrowded schools. And then finally, he makes a note that there are serious traffic concerns at that campus. And so that's our involvement. We're just going to provide you with the facts as we know them because of how they impact our capacity. And then we're going to try to give you some idea of what this development, how it may impact from public education. And so then all of the information, so there it is. This document apparently is in your packet, and you can see that of all the agencies, that was the feedback that was provided there. And so then it becomes your time to make the decision. And so with all that, what I really need to hear from you is how can we make that better? What can we do? We just develop the facts, we present it as I show it to you here, and we send it back to the Planning Commission, and then they place it into your information packet. How can we be better at that so that you feel like we want to be a part of the planning process? What information are we not giving you that you think that we should be giving you? Or how can we just generally improve the process?
Any questions of Mr. Summerall? Commissioner Pritchard?
Yes, Mr. Summerall, the school that we're getting ready to build, what kind of effect is it going to have on these numbers right here?
On this particular case,
Yeah.
all of the schools that are indicated in here will be directly impacted by the opening of this new school.
Will it bring them down below 100% capacity,
Oh,
all 3 of them?
significantly, yes, ma'am, significantly below. Into the 75% range is just a guess at this point. But as I've mentioned in here before, our intention here is not only to take kids out of Northeast and Rossview, which geographically are the 2 school zones that could get direct relief, that we're going to take more than we need to out of those schools and then allow us to bring kids from West Creek into Northeast. And I'm not doing any zoning here tonight. I'm just trying to give you an example. But we'll take more out of those schools so that we're able to try to balance all what will then be 8 of our secondary campuses to allow us to. So he knows that down below the river, the growth rate is significantly slower down there. So we don't have to take as many out of that school, but we'll take enough that there's, some growth space available there. And then in the other high growth school areas, we'll try to balance, even if those children don't go to the new school, they'll go to a different school. And that's that comprehensive rezoning that will coincide with the opening of the middle school on this campus.
Okay, and the expectation of having this school built is when?
August of 2022. So that zoning work would happen in the December generally, and then the board would approve the staff's zoning recommendation in January of 2022. And those children, there'd be a lot of exceptions for the older children to remain at their current school. We've always done that. And what they lose is the transportation piece. But on August of 2022, the entire community, the secondary level anyway, would be subject to some pretty drastic changes. And remember, I mentioned that we want to, as soon as this gets done, and it's very close, we'll start developing the communication plan to start telling the public that, that in January of 2022, a comprehensive rezoning of all what will be then 16 secondary schools of the district will be studied in detail.
Okay, so in actuality, in 2021, next year, these numbers are actually going to go up before they drop by the time we get the school built in 2022.
Yeah, I would think that's right. Of course, right now, our capacities, because 60% of our kids are in our buildings, so that the schools are not being utilized. But if we can get beyond this pandemic and things will return to normal, I think that's an accurate statement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Gannon? I can't see the queue, so I don't know who's first.
I think Harper was in front of me.
Oh, okay, Commissioner Harper?
Thank you. Jim, just a quick question. I think if you could pop up the comments, I can tell you what we're looking for would be helpful, would be comments that are specific in nature to that school and the zone that it's centered in. You had one of the comments there, I remember it from memory, was we've added 10 portables per year for the last 4 years. Well, certainly you're not referencing the school there, but you're saying countywide.
Exactly, yes.
Right. Well, one of the problems in reading the comments is there is a mixture of general information that pertains to the school system as a whole, and specific information that applies to the school and the zone that it's in. What
understand.
we
That's-
need is more
Yep.
information that's specific to the school and zone.
Yep.
I think we,
That's
as
great
commissioners,
feedback.
have a great understanding of
Sure.
the system as a whole.
That's great feedback. We'll
So
do
that's what we're looking for.
that. And that's what we'll give you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
I think Commissioner Gannon was ahead of me.
Go ahead,
Commissioner Gannon can go.
Commissioner Johnson. I'm just looking at what I got on my board. I can't, yeah, sorry.
Oh, well, first, I'd like to thank Mr. Summerall and the school system for putting this information together. Just a quick comment, it's not a question, but just to put it out there, that the facts that Mr. Summerall just presented and the situation in which we find ourselves with these schools is exactly the situation that I predict in the future if we continue to approve residential zoning in the area in question. They have this plan laid out. It looks workable. It looks like a great plan, and it looks like it will get us out of the hole in which we find ourselves, but it appears we are determined to keep digging. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and if I could speak to that just a little bit. One of the things that we do think could be missing from providing you with the best information to make your decision is that when Norm specifically looked at this zoning request, don't hold us to these exact numbers, but according to his calculations, there are already 1,700 residential lots that have been approved that will impact these schools. And I think some way for you to know that, and I don't know who is the right, if that ought to be Jeff providing you with that information, how many lots already exist in this zone that have been approved. But I think that would go to your point, and I appreciate it. That's something that we've looked at trying to improve on. Thank you.
Commissioner Gannon?
Is, you asked for things that you could do better, actually, in that type of thing without trying to get all involved in all the other stuff. But I agree with David Harper, or Commissioner Harper, on what he said as well. I wish you could add in that something like the new school is on the verge of being built. They won't be built till August of '22. That will decrease the numbers down to 75%. I mean, I know we're looking at this particular time, but if it goes out to August of 2022, then there's a whole different situation with the comprehensive rezoning. You could even add in the virtual schools. Out of the 36,500, you said how many were virtual?
14,000 and some.
14,000. So, I mean, that opens up 14,000 seats per se. Not that we
Right
won't
now.
have virtual next year. We don't know that, but
We
who
don't.
knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
what
you're
we'll
right.
have. I mean, we just don't know that. But all that information could be cooked in there as well to give a broader diversification of there, because it's not like we're just filling the school and not trying to build another school. We are working to help alleviate the overcrowding and those natures and stuff. We're not just going to keep building students there without building schools in order to alleviate the crowding, to give them the proper education that they need and stuff. So those factors, it would help if you would put those in there as well, in addition to that, to see the whole big picture, if you will. So those are the suggestions that I have to answer your
Good
question.
feedback. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? I would just have one comment on this particular example. With all due respect to Mr. Brumley, the proposed zoning's 230 acres and has the potential of adding 230 single-family residential homes. If they use 230 homes and figured the number of students, that's in error. I mean, you've got to build roads, there's detention basins, there's all kinds of things. I don't know what that mix is.
He did, Mayor. He sparred back and forth with John Spainhour at the Planning Commission, and I think that that was an interesting read. I didn't want to bore you all with that, but that point was made.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Summerall.
I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. We'll now go into our zoning resolutions. We have public hearings tonight. Our first one is CZ 12-2020, application of Mary B. Bourne, revocable trust, Richard Brian Bourne from AG to E1. Mr. Tyndall?
Just give me a second. All right. I'd like to just start off by reminding the county commission that the ultimate authority on rezoning is given to the elected bodies. Once something is rezoned, the planning commission doesn't have many tools, if any, in our toolbox to control the pace of growth, whether it happens next year or 25 years from now, or if it happens all at once or piecemeal. And I'd just like to keep that in your mind as we have some cases tonight before you. The first case tonight is the CZ 12-2020, the case of Mary Bourne Trust, Richard Bourne, agent is Deborah Butts. This is currently an ag zone piece of property. They're requesting to go to E1. It's not an extension of the zoning classification. It's 230 acres, to give you a sense of the scale there. It's at the intersection of Rossview Road and Guthrie Road out east in the east part of the county. It's in County Commission District 19. It's an irregular shaped agricultural setting with rolling hills, trees, a pond. There are several varying steep topographies. This does incorporate, the piece of property does cross the road out there. So what you see is it does split Rossview Road. It's in the rural area of the planning of the growth plan. Here's the current zoning out in that area. I also wanted to put this map in here. The blue area on this map is the rural area of the growth plan. To the east, where there is no color, that's Robertson County. And then to the west in the orange is the urban growth boundary. Out of this view to the east, over 3.5 miles to the east, is Interstate 24 outside the view there. You can see Buck Road, Kirkwood Road coming down from the north to give you some other, and for those of you who know where Killebrew Road is, around where that school site's being discussed and planned, that's in that general vicinity. Here's a shot of the corner of Rossview and Guthrie. That's looking up Guthrie, I believe, or back up Guthrie to Rossview and back at that same intersection. The whole property is relatively the same view of this, just rolling hills, former pasture land or farmland. There's an entrance on the property right now to one house, which is not part of this rezoning request. You'll see that again when we bring up the map. This is looking back Rossview Road toward the city limits. Property is on the right and left of this view. This is looking up Guthrie Road. There is a couple scattered homes, one under construction, as you can see on the left there on ag lots. There's another view of the property from Guthrie Road. And you can see that cutout in the middle is its own parcel with a home on it that is not part of this request. The request is around that and across the street. Of the department comments of note, Clarksville Gas and Water said there's no sewer available. It may require water system upgrades to get the pressure up to meet the potential units on this. We did receive some drainage comments, but they had no concern. Again, the school system, and I believe it's the similar comments that Mr. Summerall just shared with you, showed the capacity of Oakland Elementary, Rossview Middle, and Rossview High School. The applicant's estimates for this is 150 units. Our estimate is 148 units, which would bring a population between 399 and 400 individuals to the area. This would be on septic, unless for some reason sewer got out this far. It's in the Rossview planning area. Staff recommends disapproval. The proposed rezoning request is inconsistent with the overall development goals of the land use plan. This tract lies within the rural area of the adopted growth plan. The rural area lies outside the 20-year growth projection of the urban growth boundary. Properties within the rural area have been identified as areas for preservation of agricultural lands, forests, recreational areas, and wildlife management. Preservation of large tracts of agricultural land in the rural area should be prioritized. Moderate to large-scale residential developments in the rural area are detrimental to the long-term planning goals and contribute to sprawl. This property is over 3 miles by roadway to the nearest moderate or large-scale subdivision. A traffic assessment was provided and shows an acceptable level of service based on the rural nature of this area. The Planning Commission also recommends disapproval.
Any questions of Mr. Tyndall on CZ 12-2020? If commissioners, if y'all are okay with it, so we don't have to like keep wiping the microphone down, I'll let Jeff go through each of these. Jeff will be available for questions for all of them, and then we'll go back and do a public hearing on all of them without any objection. Okay, Jeff, if you would, CZ 17-2020, application of Stephen Corlew from AG to E1.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a 2.78 acre tract of land currently zoned ag, requesting to go to E1. It is not an extension of the zoning classification. The property fronts Usery Road, 350 feet northwest of Usery Road and Usery Lane intersection, just north of Highway 149 in Palmyra. It's in County District number 6. There's an existing single-family home on the site and varying topography. The applicant's statement is to subdivide the existing house for a 1 acre lot to construct a new home on the remaining 1.78 acres. Remember, the minimum lot size for ag is 1.5, so they're going to have one that's ag compliant and one that would be E1 compliant. You can see down near 149, there's a couple mixture of C5, C2, and other R1 lots down there. This is also in the rural area of the growth plan. Here's the property in question, the existing house on site, and looking back toward 149. We did not receive any comments besides the school system comments on capacities for Cumberland Elementary, Montgomery Middle, and Montgomery Central High. The estimate amount of units is 2, as per the applicant's statement. It's in the Cumberland planning area. Staff recommends approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. The proposed E1 zoning is a reasonable request with the limited amount of acreage considered and is not out of character with the node of development in this area. Adequate infrastructure serves the site. No adverse environmental issues were identified at this time.
Any questions of Mr. Tindall on CZ 17-2020? Okay, Mr. Tindall, CZ 18-2020, application to David W. Atkins from AG to E1.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a very similar request to the last one. This is 1 acre being requested to go from ag to E1. I don't have a laser pointer. You can kind of, let's see, you can't really see it. There's a tail at the rear of this property where there's an existing detached garage. Both these properties right now are 1.5 acres. They're owned by family, I believe, and they're just trying to subdivide that garage and incorporate it into the lot next to it. So in order to do that, you have to make the lot with the garage be able to be less than 1.5 acres. So they're requesting just the acreage they need to be E1 so that that house can sit on 1 acre, and then they will subdivide over the garage in the future. Property fronts the east frontage of Pace Road, 1,100 feet from Shady Grove Road, Pace Road intersection. As you can see, there's sort of a mix of E1 in the area. It's in County Commission District 3. It's in the rural area. No comments or concerns from other departments. There's the existing house on the front of the property, and the other house is to the rear of this property. You can see through the tree line. This is across the street. The driveway to the property in the rear, and obviously none of this is going to change. It will not increase any density. It's just to move some lot lines. It's in the Sango planning area. Staff recommends approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. The E1 zoning will afford the applicant the opportunity to replat for 1 acre and add the garage to the rear of the adjoining property. This request does not increase the total lot yield, and adequate infrastructure already serves the site.
Any questions of Mr. Tindall on CZ 18-2020? Thank you, sir. CZ 19-2020, application of Eagles Bluff Partnership from C5 to R4.
Thank you. This is 6.1 acres, currently zoned C5, requesting to go to R4. It is not an extension of the zoning classification. The property fronts Dover Road, US 79, 1,500 feet east of Dover Road, Liberty Church Road intersections. It's in County Commission number 10. It's an existing duplex on a 6-acre tract. The applicant's statement is to bring the existing use into code compliance, but we at the Planning Commission believe with 6 acres, it's probably going to be more than just bringing a single unit into compliance. It is in the urban growth boundary. Of comments of concern from other departments, city council or gas and water approval will be required for the extension of sewer. I'll just take a pause there. The city council has just passed a resolution, or I think it was an ordinance actually, to change that process. For many years, the city council had to vote on sewer extensions outside the city limits. Everyone has been approved to date, as far as I believe. They've changed that now to be just the gas and water committee will have to approve it at gas and water only. So it'll still run through the same process. It really just speeds up everything by about 2 months instead of having to wait for 2 readings of city council. So that comment, we're waiting for city council approval, probably will not come up anymore. If it does, it'll just be that it'll require gas and water approval of the utility extension outside the city limits. In this area, water is furnished by the Woodlawn Utility District, and they had no concerns. Other comments of concern were from the school system as provided for Liberty Elementary, New Providence Middle, and Northwest High School. There's the existing duplex on the property. Looking back toward the city on Dover Road, excuse me. And then next door, there is a sort of a commercial business run out of a house. You can see the sign looking toward Dover. It's in the Lafayette planning area. The historical estimate for units on 6 acres of R4 would be 72 units for 194 potential population. Staff does recommend approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. The adopted R4 multifamily district is not out of character with the established commercial and residential uses in the area. The existing structure on the property is a duplex. The adopted land use plan encourages a desirable mix of housing types throughout the community, and adequate infrastructure can serve the site. No adverse environmental issues were identified relative to this request. Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Any questions on CZ 19-2020 of Mr. Tyndall? Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. We will now go in public hearing to hear public comments regarding our 4 zoning applications. I'll call the case number. And if you'd like to speak in favor of or in opposition, please come to the microphone where Mr. Tyndall was. I would ask everyone that speaks to give us your name and your address. And also, if you'll note on the panel that your microphone's attached to, once you start talking, there's a 3-minute timer. Our comments are limited to 3 minutes. You'll see the timer, it will turn red, and at the 3-minute mark, the microphone will turn off. So first is CZ 12-2020, application of Mary B. Bourne, revocable trust, Richard Brian Bourne from AG to E1. Is there anyone in the audience to speak on behalf of this application? Anyone to speak on behalf of CZ 12-2020? Is there anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ 12-2020? Please come to the microphone, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and County Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Earp. My address is 3424 Guthrie Road here in lovely Clarksville, Tennessee. My family and I live approximately 1 mile from the property that is in consideration for rezoning. I am speaking for myself, my family, and my community in opposition to the rezoning of this property from agricultural to E1. I have communicated with each of you through email with our stated opposition to this rezoning request. All my email communications outlined the basic reasons for denying this request. It included scanned copies of 3 separate written petitions with signatures opposing this request, as well as a downloaded copy of an electronic petition that can still be found online. The written petitions totaled 95 signatures, while the electronic petition totaled 233 as of last night. At noon this afternoon, it has increased to 289 opposition signatures. Briefly, as the Rural Planning Commission stated, they made recommendations to deny this request. The infrastructure simply cannot handle this large development and the increased traffic. The surrounding area of this property is predominantly agricultural. There is often traffic by large, wide, heavy farming equipment traveling on the two-lane roads. These roads have limited sight distance, blind hills, and blind curves. Increased traffic would increase the potential of serious wrecks and hazards. This area is also outside of the urban growth plan map. There is a lot of land that is currently zoned within the growth plan that could be used for this development. The school zones are currently overcrowded. I have a 13-year-old son that attends Rossview, but I decided to keep him virtual this year for that reason. We as a community need to preserve our agricultural land and history. As more and more developments encroach on the agricultural lands, we will soon get to a point where there is no more land for agriculture. When the land is gone, it's gone. You simply cannot generate more. In closing, I have lived here my entire life and intend to continue to make a home for myself and my family on the small farm. All of the families in our area have worked lifetimes to preserve their family farms and take care of the area. We as a community strongly ask that you adhere to the recommendation and deny it. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ 12-2020? All right. CZ 17-2020, application of Stephen Corlew from AG to E1. Is there anyone in the audience to speak on behalf of this application?
Thank you for your time this evening. My part is really quick because my spokesperson, my wife here, she's the better public speaker. We're trying to build a home right next to our current land that we have, and she's going to explain why. We got two good reasons.
So first of all,
I hate to interrupt you. You are whom?
Oh.
That's okay.
Stephen Corlew, 2000 Ursery Road South. Thank you.
Okay.
and I'm Amy Corlew, same address. So basically, the reason we're asking to subdivide this land, it is currently our land. The lot directly beside us is my mother-in-law's land. In February of 2020, we adopted two girls out of foster. We currently live in the home, and it's a two-bedroom home with two girls. It's simply not working. And we would like to build our forever home, and my mother-in-law is a great Grammy, and we hope that you will approve this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience to speak on behalf of CZ 17-2020? Anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ 17-2020? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone in the audience to speak on behalf of CZ 18-2020, application of David W. Atkins from AG to E1? Anyone to speak on behalf of CZ 18-2020? Anyone to speak in opposition to CZ 18-2020? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak on behalf of CZ 19-2020, application of Eagles Bluff Partnership from C5 to R4? Anyone to speak on behalf of CZ 19? Anyone to speak in opposition to CZ 19? All right, we'll close our public hearing. Commissioners, now we'll go on to our resolutions. Resolution 2010-1 is a resolution to appropriate funds from the Sheriff's Office Data Processing Reserve Account. This is not any new money, it's just moving some money from the reserve account. Any questions on 2010-1? That item is scheduled for the consent agenda. Resolution 2010-2 is a resolution to amend the Sheriff's Office vehicle budget for fiscal year 2020. Any questions on 2010? That item is also scheduled for the consent agenda. Resolution 2010-3 is a resolution amending the budget of the Montgomery County Capital Projects Fund, appropriating funds received from the Governor's Local Government Support Grant. Any questions on 2010-3? That item is also scheduled for the consent agenda. Resolution 2010-4 is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of grant funds from the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security Tennessee Highway Office. Any questions on 2010-4? That item's on the consent agenda as well. 2010-5, resolution amending the budget of the Montgomery County Information Technology for the regrading of positions within the Information Technology Department. Any questions on 2010-5? That item's on the consent agenda as well. 2010-6, resolution to adopt the 2018 edition of the International Building Code, the 2018 International Residential Code, the International Plumbing Code, the International Mechanical Code, the 2018 International Fire Code, the 2018 International Energy Code, the 2018 International Fuel Code and Gas Code, the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code, and the 2009 ICC ANSI A117.1 Accessible and Usable Building and Facility Code. Any questions on those codes? I don't think I can, Commissioner Lewis. That item is set for the consent agenda as well. Resolution 2010-7 is a resolution amending the zoning resolution of Montgomery County, Tennessee, as it pertains to landscape buffer and screening requirements of industrial zone land in the rural area. Any questions on 2010-7? Commissioner Garland Johnson.
If we could just get a little clarification on exactly what that pertains.
It's my understanding, Commissioner Johnson, that this is just making all the industrial zones regarding the screening and buffer all the same.
Countywide, right now it's just in the urban growth family and the planned growth areas and industrial land everywhere. Because remember, we moved the rural area back a little bit, and we've also added several hundred acres of industrial land in the last couple of months. The planning commission felt this was a good move to make before any development.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding 2010-7? That item is also set for the consent agenda. 2010-8, resolution authorizing the mayor of Montgomery County to sign a proposal with the Tennessee Department of Transportation, project number 63021-224-04 and 63021-3224-04. This is related to sidewalks. Any questions on 2010-8? That item is also set for the consent agenda. Resolution 2010-9, a resolution to authorize funds for the Montgomery County Parks Department 10-year master plan. Any questions on 2010-9? Commissioners, I might just add that is something that if we do not have a master plan, there are a lot of grants out there that we're not eligible for, and that's the reason for this request. That item is also set for the consent agenda. Resolution 2010-10, resolution appropriating funds for the purpose of employing an additional position in the assessor's office. Any questions regarding 2010-10? That item is also set for the consent agenda. Resolution 2010-11, resolution amending the budget of Montgomery County Highway Department for the creation of a GIS specialist and a construction inspector position. Any questions on 2010-11? 2010-12, that item's also set for the consent agenda. 2010-12, resolution to enter into an agreement regarding cost and expenses of autopsies in Montgomery County and the city of Clarksville, Tennessee. Any questions on 2010-12? Commissioners, just so you'll know, that has been a handshake agreement for years, my understanding, and all it's doing is what's the word you say, Tim? The fancy word? It's putting it in writing. Yeah, he says something different. That item is also set for the consent agenda. And Resolution 2010-13, resolution to authorize transfer of less than 1 acre of land by quitclaim for the consideration at the property line of Jordan Road property / library and lot 45 Quail Ridge Road, section B1. Commissioners, I put a copy of what we're quitclaiming away. That is a issue that we've been working on With the library property that we bought, there was an encroachment on our property. Easiest thing to do is just to give it away and let somebody else pay taxes on it. We don't need it for that project. Any questions on 2010-13? All right, Resolution 2915, resolution to levy a countywide motor vehicle tax. This will be the second vote. A point of information before I ask for questions. The version that is in your Dropbox is not correct. It does not include the amendment that Mr. Harper made and was approved that basically, I can't think of the word, but all the funds are dedicated towards school projects. It took out any county general funds or anything like that. Commissioner Rasnick.
Let everybody know about an amendment I'm going to put out for next Monday.
Okay.
It'll be a wheel tax reimbursement program. It's basically taking away the $25. This would apply to people that are 65 years old or older, house income of $25,000 annually or less. Highlights on it would be it would be one vehicle per person, or it has to be the owner of the vehicle. One vehicle per household. And then I'll be emailing out the rest of the highlights of this tomorrow.
Okay, if you would email it to Ms. Baggett, and she'll get it out to all the commissioners.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Two points I'd like to make. First of all, to Commissioner Rasnick, thank you for sitting down with the two elected officials, the county clerk, even though she's not involved in this resolution, and our trustee, Ms. Jackson and Ms. Wiggins both. I appreciate you doing your due diligence with them, and I think it needs to be noted that our county trustee is, if this amendment does pass, has agreed to take this on. She's not sure what it's going to entail once she does it, and so there may be a request for an additional person sometime later, but she's agreed to take it on for a while and see what it does, and then if she needs to come before, she will. Any other questions on 2915? Commissioners, we have no unfinished old business. You'll see your reports. That'll be for approval. That'll be on the consent agenda unless some of them are pulled, but we do have some nominating committee nominations. Commissioner Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. The nominating committee met today at 5:30, and we will enter these next two as motions in the next meeting, or to be entered in there. Number one is Delinquent Tax Sales and Release Committee, which is a 2-year term. Commissioner Lisa Pritchett is nominated to replace Commissioner Charlie Keene for a 2-year term to expire in October of 2022. And then the Board of Health, which is a 4-year term, Dr. Carlo Pike, Doctor of Medicine, is reappointed for a 4-year term to expire October of 2024. Dr. Mark Hackett, veterinarian, is reappointed for a 4-year term to expire 2024. And Kevin Judish, citizen, is reappointed for a 4-year term to expire October of 2024. And those will be entered in as a motion for the next meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Gannon. We also have one county mayor nomination that will require approval by the county commission. It's on the Airport Authority Liaison Committee. Loretta Bryan is nominated to replace Commissioner Lisa Pritchard for a 2-year term to expire October 2022. And Jerry Albert's nominated to replace Commissioner Chris Rasnick, excuse me, for a 2-year term to expire October 2022. You'll see the reports filed, the Building Codes monthly report. I know there'll be some additional items. And commissioners, next Monday night, we will ask to suspend the rules. I apologize for doing that, but there's some CARES Act money that's available for Montgomery County in the tune of a little over $3 million. We have to have this resolution before us. We had to actually send something to them by the end of the day. I want to give Ms. Holt a tip of the hat for working through that while Mr. Taylor's out of the office. But we will bring this up next Monday night, and you'll be able to ask questions at that time. We have no further business. One announcement, you're invited to attend the Wadeborn Nature Center ribbon cutting event on Saturday, October the 24th at 2 o'clock. It will be in Rotary Park at the new Nature Center. I would encourage each of you to try to attend that event. With no other business, we'll stand adjourned. Thank y'all.